Tom, what's the boogeyman?
Well, Seth, if you're really curious, that is something that appears in both John Carpenter's Halloween and Rob Zombie's Halloween. So for today's video, guys, we're gonna talk. We're actually gonna be comparing two films today. We're comparing John Carpenter's Halloween with Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. Um, and what we wanted to do, guys, is we actually wanted to break up this hopefully three-part video. We're gonna try to aim for 3 parts for this one, and we're gonna cover certain categories that both films have. So first off, we're gonna start off with the thing that made the original Halloween so successful and what kind of didn't work so well in the Rob Zombie version. So the opening scene in the John Carpenter version, guys, and I'll talk first and I'll let Seth do his view on both films.
Okay.
The opening scene in the original John Carpenter version, I felt was brilliant. It was dark. It sucked us into the film. It let us know as a viewer kind of who Michael Myers was, kind of how insane he was. We got to see it from first-person views. We really felt like Michael Myers. And at the time, that whole mask over the camera feeling was a very unique thing to film back in the day, too. And also, we're also introduced to Michael Myers' dark side right away in the first film. And another thing that's kind of cool to note about the film, too, is Deborah Hill, who produced the film and who also dated John Carpenter at the time, that was her hands whenever you see Michael Myers go down and grab something in the opening scene. As far as the Rob Zombie version went, you guys, I thought that it didn't work so well because right when the movie starts, we have heavy metal music playing in the background.
Rob
kind
Zombie
of like
time.
Rob Zombie being Rob Zombie. But, yeah, I got the notes here. I just didn't like the whole disconnected family intro. I just didn't like how Rob Zombie kind of made it easy for himself where he's like, oh, well, we'll just put him in a disconnected family. And people are like, oh, okay, that's how he got messed up.
Mm-hmm.
We also see Michael Myers torturing small pets with a clown mask. And I don't know, that just didn't work
Didn't
for
he
me.
torture rats or something?
Yeah,
like
he
that?
had pet hamsters and he would cut them. And
So basically, it's like being in your science class or chemistry class and you're doing.
Yeah, he was doing that in his room.
Oh man,
so
messed up.
I just thought it was a very uninteresting perspective of the Myers family, and now I'm gonna let Seth talk because that was kind of my view on both.
Yeah, I think
scenes.
definitely with the opening scene, Halloween from 1978 was it?
78 for the John Carpenter version.
Wow, look at that! I remember my years. Awesome, cool. Yeah, I think just the opening scene, like Tom has already discussed, is I love the first person view because basically you just have that feeling that besides apart from the other characters, you have this first person view where that's Michael Myers. And I remember actually this film was actually one of my first horror films that I really got hooked to. Actually, before that, when I was a child, I hated horror films. But this one, it was kind of nice because, especially even with the opening scene, as I will actually talk, furthermore about the film, is it was less gore, or it really had no gore at all. But just that feeling of creepiness, knowing the camera guy. Actually, I would say some shots, especially in the opening scene, like where it was Michael Myers, the camera guy was supposed to act as Michael Myers. It just had that really, dark and scary feeling, and that's what you want in a horror film. Now, in regards to the opening scene and the new adaptation of Halloween, which was made like a few years ago by Rob Zombie, that one, it was horrible.
It just didn't suck you in the way the first one did.
I'm just trying to remember because I only saw it once, and from what I remember, his family in the opening scene, you got a taste of what his family was like and their lifestyles, and they were basically hillbilly trash. I mean, pardon my French, but yeah, they're just hillbilly trash, and of course, the family never supported Michael as a young kid. And of course, he was just like one of those kids, he would just kind of do his own thing, and his parents really wouldn't care unless, maybe if he was like in the kitchen or if he did something wrong, then they would, they wouldn't just,
Also, his mom was called down to the office a lot in school, too, and that was kind of
the
opening signs that she got an understanding that something was wrong with her
Wasn't there a scene, I believe, where he, these two kids, beat him up in the bathroom or something like that?
Yeah, that was pretty because I would say the first 45 minutes, Rob Zombie went a completely different direction as far as opening goes. He even admitted in an interview that the first 45 minutes was completely new footage. He said he wanted to get us to know Michael Myers more so than John Carpenter did.
Sure, sure.
That happened, I'd say, a good 25, 30 minutes into the movie.
And I think, one difference, you'll see between the original version and Rob Zombie's version is in the original version, the opening scene, you'll see his parents. They're just, normal parents. And of course, they take the mask
and we're going
off
to get
of
more
Michael.
to the, we're going to get more into the Myers family in a little bit. But we just, I guess that was what made the original so good, was just the fact that you could connect with it more. Like, you really got the impression you were watching an everyday family going into the movie, like
compared to Rob Zombie's version.
Yeah, I mean, just even look at the house that they filmed the Rob Zombie version. It was messy. The mom was always gone. The dad was a drunk. He didn't do anything. The sister was, pardon my French, slutty. Always had a guy over. Always slept with a guy that she didn't even know the name of.
And I was gonna say, if you want to get down to every little detail, look at the neighborhood. In the first one, it was a nice little neighborhood.
And this one was very trashy.
Very trashy.
Like, all the yards were
seems
dirty.
like it was in a trailer park.
Yeah.
So.
Like, there was broken bicycles, I think, behind, like, one of the first houses you see. And, yeah, it was, I don't know. To me, it felt like Rob Zombie was like, well, if we just put it in a bad neighborhood, people will believe this guy.
I think it was just cheesy.
Yeah. Next, we're going to talk about the Laurie Strode character. I liked how Jamie Lee Curtis portrayed her as a bookworm. In some ways, she was very undesirable. Like, she didn't seem like the kind of girl that would be going around getting dates with guys after school or anything. And even that being said, I really like how on the films where Michael Myers is going after her, you really get the sense of the strong female lead. Because a lot of people like this film because one of the first horror films where the lead female role isn't a weak victim of prey. She's able to escape the scene. She's able to find a way out of the situation without getting killed. And I guess that was a big surprise for people because they assumed that with Janet Leigh's daughter being the lead role in the film and her being killed in Psycho, they would have assumed probably that at the time that Jamie Lee Curtis would have gotten killed by Michael Myers also. I think it was just kind of unique how we get to see this character outwit the villain in some ways, and we didn't get to see a lot of that in previous horror movies at the time. I already talked about that, but as far as the Rob Zombie version went, I just thought the actress they chose was very bad. She just didn't fit the part. I also didn't like how the Laurie Strode and the Rob Zombie versions thought about sex and dirty things a lot. Not a lot of bookworm characteristics. She struck me as a girl that would come home and maybe call up her friends, but she wouldn't get right away down in the books studying. And I guess that's one thing about Laurie Strode in the original that I really thought about too.
And we have to look at Laurie Strode just as a character. It was basically a film about a stalker, stalking babysitters, and with John Carpenter's version of Halloween, with his vision of Laurie Strode, she felt like a babysitter. She felt like, yes, a person that was committed to school. She was a smart person, but of course, unlike Rob Zombie's version, where Laurie Strode didn't think about sex constantly, and she didn't really. I think Rob Zombie's version of Laurie Strode just didn't feel like a babysitter / just just the Laurie Strode character, just in general.
Yeah, I just felt like I remember right when we're introduced to Laurie Strode because keep in mind Laurie Strode was a baby at the beginning of the first Halloween, so we never got to see her. In this version, she was a baby also, but she had no lines because she was a baby. And also, when we actually physically get to see Laurie talking as a teenager later in the movie, she talks to her parents in a way that I can't name anybody who talks to their parents in such a way like this too. Like she was talking about something sex related at the table, and she gets the bagel and puts her finger through it constantly or something, and I'm like, Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode would have never done that. And I guess that's one thing I really did not like about it is if you're going to reinvent the character, reinvent her in a clever way. Don't just say that she's this girl that thinks about sex all the time.
And that's why I like the Laurie Strode in John Carpenter's version of Halloween.
Another thing too is the Laurie Strode in the Rob Zombie one was very disrespectful to the kids. She didn't treat them very well. She always teased them when she was babysitting them, and even though I kind of see that with some babysitters when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
the way Lori handled it in the Rob Zombie one didn't seem like a playful tease. It felt like, "Ha, you don't understand what's actually going on here. I'm going to make fun of you about it," kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, what I liked about Laurie Strode and John Carpenter's version of Halloween was, she felt innocent. She felt pure. She felt like an actual victim of course, what we find out later on in the film. But she felt, like, just a normal human being. Just a regular, babysitter. But she just felt real pure. She felt, real. So I just overall I like Laurie Strode and John Carpenter's version of Halloween, and just totally discuss the character chosen in Rob Zombie. But of course, I think I'm just gonna continue to say negative things about that film. But that's me.
Next, guys, we're going to talk about Michael Myers' origin and the actual character himself. Um, I actually, for when I was taking notes before we did the video, I actually gave the John Carpenter one a neutral on this one, and I gave actually Rob Zombie a plus on this one for actually explaining the origin to us. But I will also get into detail more in a second here as to why I'm still undecided on a John Carpenter one, because the way he did handle it is a very interesting way as how he took on the character. So I'm actually going to start with John Carpenter's version first. Um, I liked how I kind of liked how he was rarely talked about in the origin. Whenever that origin was talked about in the first film, um, I also liked the kind of the mystery behind the character. Like you don't. I guess that's what made him creepy in the first film, is you don't know what he wanted or what he was after. Um, and even though I was explained more so in the Rob Zombie version, um, I just think that's what made the character more scary at the time, is because people were used to characters like Dracula and Frankenstein, where you see the origin, you know their motivations and everything else. Um, but I think what just made the Michael Myers character so scary, especially when he has the mask on and the blue suit and everything, is you really don't know what he's after. You don't know.
Oh, he's an emotionless
Yeah,
guy.
and even if he did want to go after the sister and kind of fulfill that ritual he was doing at the beginning of the film, like kind of do that thing that he originally wanted to do. You don't know why he was doing it. You don't know if he was doing it for a religious belief. You don't know if he was doing it just for insanity. I guess leaving that open was kind of a clever idea because of the fact that it's open for interpretation of how your viewer's going to view how that killer is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, like I said, it wasn't talked about a lot, and even though for those viewers who want a specific answer as to why the motivation happens, I kind of like how Carpenter left that open so that way his viewer could leave that open for interpretation. Um, Also, I liked how John Carpenter kind of established these unique characteristics of Michael Myers. Um, the tilting head after a kill. He always walks and never runs. Always uses a kitchen knife. That's kind of his weapon of choice. Um, Also, with the breathing pattern, with the
Mm-hmm. You find out that most
yeah,
that
like
sound was mostly used at the
it
end of
sounds
the film.
like a guy actually breathing in this
Mm-hmm.
very thick mask.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I think that was very unique for some people, because a lot of horror film directors didn't want to go through the trouble of recording that breathing pattern and putting that into the film. And Carpenter really thought it through and said, "What can I do, not only to make this guy a stalker, but make him a very scary, unpleasing, disturbing guy to watch."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when we actually come back, you guys, we're going to get into more detail, and I'll let Seth talk about the Michael Myers origin. And we hope to see you back here for part 2.